Steve Cleveland joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline, former BYU head basketball coach, friend of the program. We're here to talk BYU and UNLV. Coach, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good.
3-game win streak will help with that, right, for BYU after a 3-game losing streak. What have you noticed has changed on the floor between that 3-game skid and now the 3-game run?
I think sometimes there are some little things that you'll notice, and then we'll talk about them. But I think also, too, the schedule and who you're playing. Houston was really good. Illinois State, they had a chance, but they played well there. Obviously, the Weber was a bit of an aberration. But as you look at this, I think the greatest growth almost always comes after losses, and especially with a group that is a veteran group. They have very high expectations. It's not too hard to get their attention to look to make changes. But I think that there's a maturity and maybe a little more patience, both ends of the floor. I think defensively this team has been kind of up and down. But if you look at the Utah State game and the Utah game, I did not see the Portland State game, but those two games, they guarded as well as they've guarded all year. And USU, they're playing at home. They're a really, really solid team. Utah is down. Well, I think we all know Utah is down, but they're still so well coached that they don't beat themselves. And unfortunately, they don't have the scores they've had. But I thought that BYU defensively was really, really solid. It just when you lose, all of a sudden there's way more of an attention to detail and defensively making adjustments, and then kind of the intangible things that come from within a team that. Hey, we have to be together here. We've got to have the chemistry and the commitment to do this. And they have good leaders helping them do that.
The old players-only meeting happened as well. Gather the troops. Nick Emery comes in, and BYU wins the next 3. So I feel like those two played a role. But then you also have this, Steve. Yoeli Childs and TJ Haws are playing at another level. They're both juniors, and now we're seeing kind of they're really blossoming into their best selves right now.
They are. The thing about Yoeli is he's so much more patient this year. And I think we know he's explosive. We know he can attack around the rim. He's got a soft touch. But, he doesn't settle. Occasionally he'll take a quick 3, but that doesn't happen very often anymore. He just doesn't settle for bad shots. And if you don't double team him, he's going to score or get fouled. The thing that I do like, the teams that have doubled him, rather than him trying to force it, he'll find an open teammate and then repost. So Yoeli's been really special, and his ability to shoot 31, 32, 33% from the 3 really stretches things, opens things up, and that helps his teammates. TJ, with TJ, a lot of it is a great deal of confidence. You can see that he's not thinking; he's just kind of playing instinctively. And I also, as I've watched him, he's taking fewer contested shots. He'll move the ball. They'll go side to side. He won't take it quickly. Now, he'll take it on the break and transition if he has it, but I just think his maturity and shot selection is better. I'll tell you another little thing, an intangible I think is really important here, and I have not talked to him about this or his former high school coach, but I think that his relationship with Quincy Lewis and Quincy having some responsibilities at the offensive end, I think there's just a connection there that has really helped TJ in terms of the offensive side of the ball.
Steve Cleveland with us on BYU Sports Nation. And yesterday we talked about with Lee Kamar that TJ just looks like he's having fun. He's enjoying the game again. In the previous 2 years, there were moments when he just looked miserable. So it's good to see him enjoying the game, and that absolutely factors in. How much does it factor in, Coach?
Well, it does. And when you're playing well and you have confidence, the game is more fun. The game's always more fun when you win and when the ball's going through the basket. But I think I just felt like in watching TJ the last couple of years, there was so much pressure, and I don't know where that pressure came from himself, and probably most of it was because he has very high expectations for his game, or just the expectations of who he was supposed to be and who this team was supposed to be. And I think basically through the coaching staff and probably through him and his good friends, he just decided that, you know what, I'm going to be who I am. And certainly he's improved his ability to defend. He understands his role, which is a very huge thing in terms of confidence. When guys understand their role and coaches continue to reinforce that, then they know what a good shot is and a bad shot is, and that it's not a bad thing when they miss a shot. And sometimes TJ wanted to beat himself up when he missed a couple of jumpers because he's a young man that has high expectations for himself, and that's what makes him special. So I think it's a combination of things. I think it is a maturity. It's his third year. I think he's surrounded by players that he loves being with. I think having his ex-high school coach being really involved in the offense, I think has helped. And he shot it. I mean, he just shot selection's better, everything's better, and he can get guys open as well.
There's been this kind of natural progression, right? Dave's really good at developing not only like a first-team all-league player, but actually a second guy. And so we're seeing kind of that Elijah Bryant role being filled by TJ Haws in the terms of shots and points and whatnot. And another guy I want to address with you is Connor Harding. He started the last couple of games, the freshman from Pocatello, Idaho. Same high school as Taysom Hill. And Harding is turning into quite the player. What do you think of his development so far?
You know, I saw him before we left to come back here. I watched him practice, I guess several months ago. And I watched him for about 10 minutes. And I went over to Coach Rose and told him, I said, this is a special player. And I said, number one, for a young player, especially coming off a mission, he has so much maturity, always had a sense and a feel for the game. And, you know, he's 6'7", he's strong body. He's not a great three-point shooter that's going to come, but he's kind of I think he has the potential to be a little bigger version of Tyler Haws. I mean, he just always knows where he is. He can handle the ball in the open court, in the half court. He can get into seams. He's always balanced. And, I love Connor Harding. I mean, he's going to have a great career at BYU, and he's a big part of this team because defensively he can guard all the positions. I mean, he's not going to guard continuously a 6'10" post guy, but he can switch on one, is strong enough and big enough to get him off the block. So anytime you can put somebody on the floor that can play, literally, he can play the 2, 3, 4. And I guess if you needed to, if you had foul trouble, he'd probably go down on the block, or they'd probably just open it up. But he has multiple weapons, and most of all, he just has a composure about him that for a first-year player is somewhat uncommon, and he's just fit right in. So I love Connor Harding.
BYU is undefeated since the return of Nick Emery. I don't know how much that is directly correlated to Nick's return, but he certainly has seemed to give BYU an injection of life. What do you think about that injection of Nick Emery back into BYU basketball, and how is it manifesting itself on the floor?
First of all, Nick's a really, really positive person. All the things that he's gone through, he's become a better leader. He's become an example to these young men, and they love him. And he's had a relationship with a lot of these guys. Even when he was away, he's continued to have a relationship. There is a great relationship between Nick and this team, and everybody on that team is pulling for Nick in the community. And I think that he's gone through so many things and has so many experiences as a player on and off the court that guys are listening to him. And he is a leader. Whether he's on the floor or not, you can just kind of watch players, and he's so positive. So that is a big piece of it. That's kind of one of the intangibles. I think defensively, he immediately makes BYU better. Nobody's getting by him on direct drives to the basket where bigs have to help and get into foul trouble. And he's taking it slow. He's not forcing things. He's not a disruptive force on the floor. If anything, he's really added to the chemistry, making the extra pass. And, you can tell on the bench and when he makes a basket and makes a play and has an assist that everybody really enjoys the experience together. And that's the evidence of a great culture in a program. And Nick has done a lot to really, really strengthen that culture and that chemistry of this team. And there'll be a day, too, where he ends up putting up different numbers as he gets comfortable. I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of like him coming off the bench. Number one, he's kind of the coach on the bench, making sure everybody's watching what's going on. He gets in there. He gets a sense and feel for things, not as much pressure. And then during the course of the game, as they rotate in and out, when he and TJ are on the floor together, there are good things happen.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see a 1,000-point scorer be somewhat passive offensively right now, and perhaps he doesn't want to step on anyone's toes. But his assist-to-turnover ratio is 8-1 in 3 games, so far so good. Now BYU plays UNLV, Coach. Oh, UNLV back on the schedule. This is fun. And it's not in the Thomas and Mack, which is great news. What do you think of Saturday's matchup with the old Mountain West foes?
Well, I like BYU in this game. And there's some things that BYU has to do. I mean, UNLV, Marvin Mincy's a really good coach, and they can play up-tempo. They can play half-court. They've got good athletes, and sometimes that can be problematic for BYU. But I just don't think UNLV shoots it well enough. 43% from the floor, in the 20s, 7% from the 3. They're 60s, mid-60s from the free throw line. They turn the ball over 17 times a game. They're a team that has 4 or 5. They have 4 freshmen. They've got a few upperclassmen. They don't really have any real quality wins. They've lost to LMU, to Valpo, to Cincinnati. Illinois was a tough loss, but Illinois is also 3-7. So I don't think they've really had a marquee win. Now, this being said, if BYU takes quick shots or they don't take care of the basketball and they don't block out, then Vegas becomes a real player in this game because Vegas is going to go to the boards. That's one thing that they do. They're a +10 rebounding team this year. And so they may not have the skill set, but if you allow them to get 2 and 3 shots, so defensively they've got to block out. The other thing is that if you take quick threes and get long rebounds, they're going to be really quick to the hoop, and you're going to allow them to have easy opportunities. So BYU needs to lock them up defensively, contest, make them shoot over them and through them, then block out and give them 1 shot at a time. If they do that going in, BYU will score enough points, and BYU will get to the free throw line because this team's not as disciplined defensively. They are going to foul you, and if BYU shoots free throws as they have been, I think it's a game that BYU certainly has a great opportunity to win. And the fact it's in a neutral site, at the end of the day right now, Las Vegas College, university basketball there, the community is more interested in the hockey team and the Raiders coming in and probably down the road an NBA team. And there isn't the support for that program that there has been in the past. And so I think that helps BYU as well. This game was in the Thomas and Mack, and things were as they were 10 years ago. Tough. It would be even more difficult. But BYU has to do those 2 or 3 things. If they can, I think they'll have an opportunity to win this game.
Coach, before we let you go, what's your favorite BYU UNLV memory? Mine came in March of '04 when Haws scored at the buzzer. What about you?
Yeah, you know what? I'd probably go with that as well. I can tell you my worst one was in our third year when we got blown out in the finals. But that was a huge loss. That loss kind of turned everything for us. The next year we won that tournament and won the league. But I agree with you on that. There were always great games that we had, went down there and won, and it was always fun to win in Vegas. I mean, it was close to home. It was a quick trip back, and those were great rivalries. And I'd love to see San Diego State and UNLV continue to be on the schedule. I think that's just good for all of us, and maybe we can rekindle that rivalry.
Coach, always great to talk to you. We appreciate the time and hope you're having an enjoyable holiday season.
Thanks so much, guys.